We all have family stories, right? A tapestry of tales passed down through generations. But what if you could look at the threads of that tapestry under a microscope? What if inside the very cells of a people there was a biological record, a hidden history just waiting to be read? The genetic story of the Jewish people holds a truth that is rewriting what we thought we knew. For centuries, we've seen Ashkenazi, Sephardic and Mizrahi Jews as separate groups, divided by thousands of miles and unique histories, cultures and languages. One group in the heart of Europe, another scattered across Spain and North Africa, and a third rooted in the Middle East. But what if their DNA proved they were all part of the same extended family, all branching from a single ancient origin? What if modern science could finally solve the puzzle of how these scattered communities kept a hidden connection? In this video, we're unpacking the DNA evidence that links these groups and reveals a breathtaking story of survival and continuity. For most of human history, the story of the Jewish diaspora was one of separation. After the Roman expulsion from Judea nearly 2,000 years ago, Jewish communities scattered across the globe. They settled in different lands, adopted different customs, and spoke different languages. The historical record tells a story of fragmentation, but in the late 20th century, a new kind of historian showed up, the population geneticist. Armed with DNA analysis, scientists started asking a question history alone couldn't answer. Are these distinct Jewish groups actually related? The answer is locked in our genetic code, in two key parts of our DNA that act like family archives. First, there's the Y-chromosome, passed down nearly unchanged from father to son. It's a powerful tracer of paternal lineage, a direct link to a population's forefathers. Second, there's mitochondrial DNA, or mtDNA, which is passed exclusively from a mother to her children. It tells the story of the maternal line, a history of the founding mothers. By analysing these genetic markers from thousands of people across Ashkenazi, Sephardic and Mizrahi populations, scientists made a groundbreaking discovery. Despite centuries of separation, these groups are more closely related to each other than to the non-Jewish populations they lived among. In fact, genetic studies show that on average, individuals within these major groups share a level of relatedness similar to fourth or fifth cousins, pointing to a shared ancestry dating back over 2,000 years. The most stunning evidence came from the Y-chromosome. Studies revealed that the paternal lineages of all three major Jewish groups trace back not to Europe, North Africa or Persia, but to a shared origin in the ancient Middle East. This genetic data perfectly matches the historical narrative of an ancestral population in the Levant, the region of modern-day Israel and its neighbours. One of the most famous examples is the Cohen Modal haplotype. In 1997, researchers found a specific Y-chromosome signature that was remarkably common among Jewish men who identify as Kohanim, the priestly class traditionally believed to be direct descendants of the biblical figure Aaron. This genetic marker, found in both Ashkenazi and Sephardic Kohanim, provided powerful evidence of an ancient paternal line preserved across the diaspora. Later, more detailed research identified a specific lineage, JP58, carried by a large portion of Kohanim with deep roots in the Near East. While not all Kohanim share this marker, its high frequency was a revelation, a biological echo of an ancient oral tradition, written in the language of genes. This discovery was the first piece of the puzzle. The paternal story was clear, a shared ancestry from the Middle East. But this only deepened the mystery. If these groups all came from the same small population of ancestors, how did they become so distinct? That shared Middle Eastern origin is just the prologue. The main chapters are written in the journeys that followed. As Jewish communities migrated out of the Levant, they took different historical paths that shaped them into the related, yet distinct groups we know today. This divergence was driven by migration, geographic isolation, and admixture, the process of mixing with local populations. Let's start with Ashkenazi Jews, who are the largest Jewish demographic today. After leaving the Middle East, their ancestors migrated into Europe, eventually settling in Germany's Rhine Valley. From there, persecution and opportunity pushed them east into Poland, Lithuania, and Russia. For centuries, they lived in relative isolation, but genetics reveals a complex story. While their paternal DNA is overwhelmingly Middle Eastern, a significant part of their maternal DNA has European origins. This points to a history where men from the ancestral Jewish population started families with women from local European communities. A 2014 study analysing Ashkenazi genomes suggested their ancestry is roughly half Middle Eastern and half European. Next up are the Sephardic Jews, whose story unfolds on the Iberian Peninsula. For centuries, these communities thrived in Spain and Portugal. When they were expelled in 1492, they scattered across the Mediterranean, settling in North Africa, the Ottoman Empire, and the Americas. Their genetic profile reflects this journey. They generally retain a strong Middle Eastern ancestry and show genetic influences from their time in Iberia and North Africa. Finally, we have the Mizrahi Jews, often called the Eastern Jews. In many ways, they are the guardians of the original genetic heritage. These are the descendants of communities that either never left the Middle East or migrated east into Persia, modern-day Iraq, Syria, and Yemen. Because they stayed in or near the Jewish homeland, their DNA shows the strongest continuity with ancient Middle Eastern populations. High-resolution analysis confirms that Mizrahi populations, particularly from Iraq and Iran, form a distinct genetic cluster that is separate from other Jewish groups but closely related to them. So, the picture that emerges is one of a core ancestry that branched out. Each group's DNA became a living archive of its unique history, a blend of shared Levantine origins and the distinct genetic influences from the lands they called home. The story of Ashkenazi Jewish genetics has another fascinating twist, a dramatic event known as a founder effect. Imagine trying to build a new city with only a handful of families. Any rare genetic traits those founders carry are far more likely to become common in their descendants. This is a genetic bottleneck. Scientific evidence strongly suggests that most of today's 10 million Ashkenazi Jews descend from a tiny founding population. One 2014 study estimated this group may have been as small as 350 individuals who lived around 600 to 800 years ago. As this small population expanded rapidly, rare genetic mutations carried by the founders became amplified. The consequences are profound, particularly for health. The Ashkenazi population has a higher frequency of certain rare genetic disorders, such as Tay-Sachs and Gaucher disease. For instance, some estimates suggest that up to 1 in 10 Ashkenazi Jews is a carrier for a Gaucher disease mutation, compared to about 1 in 200 in the general population. Similarly, mutations in the BRCA1 and BRCA2 genes, which increase the risk of breast and ovarian cancer, are found in about 1 in 40 Ashkenazi Jews, a rate many times higher than in other populations. This clear genetic trail also allows us to address one of the most persistent theories about Jewish origins, the Khazar hypothesis. This theory proposes that Ashkenazi Jews are not descended from Middle Eastern Israelites, but from the Khazars, a Turkic-speaking people whose nobility is said to have converted to Judaism in the 8th century. This idea has often been used to challenge the Jewish connection to the land of Israel. So, what does the science say? It's complicated, and the debate is heated. The majority of genetic studies have found that Ashkenazi Jews share the most genetic ancestry with other Jewish populations, Sephardic and Mizrahi, and with non-Jewish groups from the Middle East, finding little to no evidence for a Khazar origin. However, a minority of studies have proposed that the Ashkenazi genome is a mosaic that includes ancestries from the Caucasus region, which they argue supports a potential Khazar contribution. The scientific consensus leans heavily against the Khazar hypothesis, but the debate continues, making it a hot topic among geneticists. The story is further enriched by smaller Jewish communities, like the Ben Israel of India and the Beta Israel of Ethiopia. Their unique genetic histories blend ancient Jewish ancestry with local populations over centuries of isolation, showing that Jewish identity has always been a complex interplay of ancestry, culture, and faith. So, what's the reality of Jewish genetic origins? The science tells a story more intricate and powerful than any myth. It reveals that the major Jewish populations, Ashkenazi, Sephardic, and Mizrahi, aren't separate peoples. They're the scattered branches of a single tree with roots planted firmly in the soil of the ancient Middle East over 2 millennia ago. Their DNA is a chronicle of their journey. It tells of a shared paternal ancestry that has remained remarkably intact across continents. It speaks of the different maternal lines that joined this lineage. It carries the scars of bottlenecks and founder effects, a testament to survival against impossible odds. And it provides a data-driven lens through which to examine historical debates. The divisions we see today are a product of history and geography, but underneath it all, the genetic code reveals a unified story. It shows that despite different languages, customs, and experiences, these groups are, in reality, one extended family. Their DNA is more than a biological blueprint. It's a living historical document, proof of an enduring connection that has survived exile, persecution, and the passage of millennia. The truth isn't just about a single origin, it's about the incredible resilience of an identity preserved in the fabric of life itself. If this journey through our genetic past fascinated you, give this video a like and subscribe for more deep dives into history and science. And share your thoughts in the comments. Does your DNA tell a surprising story about your own ancestry? Thanks for watching.